By the time I graduated, I had already stopped expecting the day to feel like anything. People kept describing it as a milestone, a turning point, something shared. But for me, it felt more like the end of a long negotiation I'd been having alone. Every step forward had come with a quiet understanding that I was responsible for keeping things acceptable: grades, behavior, choices. Approval was never guaranteed, only temporarily granted. Still, I went to the ceremony. I walked across the stage. I took the photo they wanted. Afterward, they suggested dinner. A reservation I hadn't made, at a place I wouldn't have chosen. It had the kind of lighting that made everything look softer than it really was. They were already seated when I arrived. My mother smiled first. It was practiced. The kind she used in public. My father gave a short nod. My sister didn't look up right away. She was adjusting something on her phone, angling it slightly before placing it on the table, screen facing outward. I noticed it, but I didn't ask. Dinner started normally. Questions about the ceremony. About what came next. The usual structure. But there was a rhythm to it that felt rehearsed, like everyone was waiting for a specific point in the evening. I didn't rush it. I answered what they asked, kept my tone even. Ate slowly. Then, between courses, my mother reached into her bag. "I wanted to give you something," she said, loud enough for the table, but not loud enough to draw attention from anyone else in the restaurant. She placed a folded document in front of me. It wasn't wrapped, no card, just paper. From all of us. There was a pause after that, deliberate. I looked at the paper, then at her. No one else spoke. My sister's phone was angled more clearly now, directed toward me. I unfolded it. The language was formal. Structured. It read less like something written by a parent and more like a notice. Words like "Urabai," no longer responsible, severance of obligation. It outlined boundaries in precise terms: financial, emotional, legal. Though I knew some of it didn't carry actual legal weight. It wasn't a conversation. It was a statement. I read it once, then again, slower. Across the table. My father shifted slightly in his chair. My mother watched my face closely, searching for something. My sister stayed quiet. But I could feel the attention coming from her direction, steady and focused. They were waiting. Not just for a reaction, for a specific kind of reaction. Something that would confirm the importance of what they'd done. Something visible. I folded the paper carefully along the original crease. "Okay," I said. It wasn't dismissive. It wasn't emotional, just an acknowledgement. My mother blinked, like she hadn't heard correctly. "'Kay," I nodded. "Thank you for letting me know." The words landed differently than I expected. Not because of what I said, but because of what I didn't. There was a brief disruption in the atmosphere. Not loud but noticeable. Like a cue had been missed. "That's it?" my sister asked. Her voice edged with something between confusion and irritation. I glanced at her phone, then back at her. "What were you expecting?" She didn't answer. My father cleared his throat. "You should understand, this is about accountability. About making sure I understand," I said, before he could finish. And I did. Just not in the way they thought. For a moment, no one spoke. The server approached the table, hesitated slightly, then set down the next course. The interruption gave them time to reset, but not enough to recover whatever version of the moment they had planned. I picked up the paper again, not to reread it, but to hold it properly. "I'll take this with me," I said. My mother's expression shifted, something closer to uncertainty now. "You don't have anything to say?" I considered that. There were things I could have said. Explanations, arguments, questions that had been building for years. But none of them felt like they belonged in that moment, not in the way the moment had been constructed. So I shook my head lightly. "No. I think this covers it." I stood up, not abruptly. Just enough to signal I was leaving. My sister leaned forward slightly as if to keep me in frame. My father looked like he might say something, but didn't. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. I placed my napkin on the table. "Congratulations," I added, though I wasn't sure to who. Then I walked out. The air outside was cooler than I expected. I stood there for a second. Letting it settle, the noise of the restaurant muffled behind me. I didn't check my phone right away. When I did, there were already messages. At first, just from my sister. "Are you serious right now? You just walked out. Say something. Then my mother. We need to talk about this. This isn't how you handle something like this. My father's message came last. You're misunderstanding the intent. I read them all, then locked the screen. None of it felt urgent. Because the truth was, by the time they handed me that letter, it had already been answered. Months earlier. I'd signed a lease they didn't know about. Not temporary housing, something stable, in my name alone. I'd moved my accounts. Changed my contact details on official documents, redirected anything that still tied back to them. Quiet steps, taken without announcement. I'd done it slowly. Not out of fear, but because I didn't want the process to become a confrontation. Independence, for me, wasn't a declaration. It was a series of decisions no one else needed to approve. By the time I graduated, there wasn't anything left for them to withdraw. The letter didn't remove me from anything. It just formalized a distance that had already been there. Over the next few days, the tone of their messages changed. Less certain. More questioning. Where are you staying? Are you coming back? We didn't mean for it to go like this. I didn't respond right away. Not out of punishment, but because I didn't have anything immediate to offer. Eventually, I sent one message. I'm okay, I've made my arrangements. That was it. No explanation. No details. The replies came quickly after that, but I didn't open them. It wasn't anger that kept me from reading them, it was something quieter. A sense that whatever they said next would be shaped by a version of me that no longer needed to exist. I still have the letter. Folded the same way it was when they gave it to me. Sometimes I take it out, not to reread it, but to remind myself how clear things can become when they're finally said out loud. Not everything needs a response. Some things just need to be recognized for what they are. And left there.